Start the season, Carter.
And welcome back to Tear Down Your Trash House, your favorite renovation show where we take your bum-ass crappy homes that you don't like anymore and smash them to pieces and maybe make one you'll like better. Or maybe you just don't like anything and you don't want to grapple with that yet. Listen in as your favorite power couple in renovation get progressively angrier at each other to the point where you watching at home will go, are they okay? Like, are they... Are they sleep? Are they still like living together?
I'm all about
Tune
the open
in
floor pan.
today.
It's all about the open floor pan. No other option.
Right.
You want
Yeah,
walls? No.
Open You know what's funny? My house basically, like my family home basically is that. Like I bought an air filter, and it kind of dawned on me that it doesn't really. It's not very effective because, like, I don't know if you've been in my house before, Kevin, but like. The living room, the dining room, and the sort of main room, like the kitchen, are all basically, like, they're not really separated other than, like, a little half door.
Yeah.
And it really dawned on me, I'm like, what's the point of this thing? And plus I have that, like, elevated roof, which is weird because, like, room-wise, in terms of, like, layout, like, our entire, like, larger neighborhood complex are all kind of built the same. Like, it's a toll house sort of thing. They all kind of built the same house. But for some reason, they arbitrarily, in my neighborhood, built, like, 3 or 4 with super elevated roofs, which give the illusion of size, even though it's, like, not, usable size.
Yeah.
Like, you can't put something up there unless you want to make, like, a net if you're a gorilla.
Yeah, I don't think I've been inside your... If I have been in your house, it's been at least 10 years easily since I have been.
Right.
And that was just like pick you up.
Right. And this is the part where I turn to the camera and go, you see, audience, the joke is the NFL draft is an opportunity to renovate your franchise and reimagine your vision. And I did a metaphor of houses. But anyway, welcome back to Carter and Kevin Explain Football. I'm Carter.
What are you talking about, Carter and Kevin Explain Football?
I was going to introduce the name after I introduced it.
Oh, my bad. I'm not Carter. Right.
But yes, basically this is all a roundabout way of saying we're doing a little renovating here ourselves. The show that you've known as Carter and Kevin Explain Football for the last 2 seasons...
It's 2.
2 seasons, yes. 2 seasons, or no, 3 seasons. Because their first one was the Eagles lost the Super Bowl. Then there was that season last year, or 2 years ago. And then there was the Super Bowl win. So this is our season 4, actually. Right? We've been doing this for a while.
I think that the first season that we did, though, was technically the Carter Explains Football to Callum and Tom. Like,
yes, it was sort of more of a hodgepodge thing.
It was the like pilot special, like Fairly Odd Parents showing up on cartoons or whatever it was.
Yes, it was more of like a seasonal block of like discussion as opposed to the full-fledged show. But this is our 3rd full year where we're doing weekly updates, barring illness or crazy circumstance. But yes, we've decided to do a little rebranding. So, in the spirit of rebranding, welcome back to Don't Sleep on Football. I'm Carter.
I'm Kevin. That's right. I'm going to do my actual name this time.
Woo! But yes, you pitched this a while ago, and I was really gung-ho about it. I'm curious what your feeling, like what your thought process was on that.
So, obviously every good team needs a rebrand every once in a while. But it was like a couple of things. So like, it was heavily emphasized, especially last season. Like, the first season, we like truly did this. So 2 seasons ago, we really we figured out who we were and stuff. And then a huge part of our identity, especially last season, became the don't sleep on games. The real like low key stuff for like more casual fans, or like the things that you don't really want to like listen to. And it's like, sure, it's us talking about football, but after typing that in the title a lot, it got a little wordy, felt a little rough. So it's just like, And it's also like, it's still us talking about football and explaining football, but I feel like the shift has gone from us teaching our friends about football to us talking about your like the lower key things that might go missed.
Right. That's kind of why I appreciate the name, because like,
Because that's
right, the original idea was just getting our friends into something. It was a play on Kevin or Callum Explains Anime.
Yes.
My long gestating Broadway version of that.
still
But like,
waiting.
yes. I guess I'm still like, yeah, as we were doing this and as we progressed, one, the don't sleep on part was the most challenging and fun for me to think of, like, what's an out of the box thing I can suggest? What is an out of the box pitch I can make? While also,
Yeah.
like, I guess if we're discussing what we would want this show to be as a regular thing, it's like, I like the idea of being a step above your, like, sort of run of the mill sports radio jaw and talk show, and the step above of like the sort of more in the weeds analytical podcast. Like, I like the idea of being a sort of a step above entry level football discussion. The idea of like, because at the end of the day, like, one of the reasons why I prickle at the whole sport ball thing, one, because it's like, hey man, I don't shit on your hobbies. But also like,
I have no room to talk that shit on. If I think something's dumb.
well,
I'll
yeah,
tell them
well,
it's
you
dumb.
know what? Fair, yeah, you're right. Like, I do that fucking Deku voice a lot
You
in
do.
the chat to make fun of, but I do it out of love. I'll
It's out
watch
of
the show
love.
eventually.
God, I hope you do. It's actually a
anyway.
good show.
I know I'll like it. I just like doing a bit. But anyway, the point is, like, one of the reasons why I think it's good to know stuff about football is it's like, yeah, it's nice to have like a shared culture thing. It's nice to know what's happening in your city. Like, it's a part of your city. It's a part of your like city's pop culture.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that. And I like offering sort of like a step above the water cooler talk of like, oh, how about that Saquon Barkley? I like having the opportunity to be like, here's, if you want to like impress, you know, your coworkers, if you want to know a little more so you can have like a sort of more in-depth discussion with your friends and peers who are really into football, go to Don't Sleep On.
Yeah.
The Don't Sleep On games, the Don't Sleep On players. It'll let you get like a tier above sort of like your entry-level stuff so you can like hold a conversation.
Yeah, you got a date with a big football fan and you don't want to seem like you just Googled it. I feel like that's the level of like, it's like we do hit the hits like everybody else, but we do hit those little moments that make you just like slightly more like, oh, this person actually does know what they're talking about for like a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like kind of
That's why.
yeah, going on your like
Oh, go ahead.
spectrum of things. It's like it is that step up of just being more I don't want to say more technical. We are not very technical people.
Right.
But it's like it's a little bit more in depth, and I think a big part is like, sure, we talk about our teams, which you'll get with every regional variant of football talk, whether it be radio, podcast, anything, TV, and then we also give credit and flowers to those that like they might not make the highlight reel, they might not make your top 10, but it's just like, hey, are we not going to talk about this guy?
Exactly. Yeah, which is why I felt like the rebranding was absolutely perfect to go into a new season with.
I thought of it
And,
like
yeah,
week 9 or 10 last season originally.
Right. I remember seeing you had a note just in the Google Doc, and I was like, I'll let him bring that up when he's ready to bring it up.
Yeah.
I think there were like 3 straight weeks where I'm like, I wonder if he's going to loop back to that. Are we going to talk about that on mic?
Yeah. And I wanted to save it for the end of the season to prevent any form of distraction from the current objective at hand, which is why I waited the entire year to do it. But I didn't want to.
It's not that we're
I
forgetful.
didn't want to. No, it's because we're forgetful. I did not want to write it down and instantly forget about. Like, if I didn't write it down, I would have forgotten about it a week later. Guaranteed.
All right, fine. I was going to give you some grace,
Nope.
but fuck me, I guess.
I guess we use all these Google Sheets and stuff.
Yes. These Google Sheets, which I will say, it is very funny. So to bring you inside baseball a little bit, for the draft, we use sort of color-coded Google Sheet, and it really does make you appreciate which teams have very aesthetically pleasing color schemes and which actively hurt to look at.
I'm looking
My
at you,
eyes hurt.
49ers.
49ers, I was going to say, I'm like, my eyes hurt. This is uncomfortable to look at.
So
Why did you?
yeah, for context, when I made it, I tried to duplicate their color scheme as close as possible without going too far deep into the this hurts my eyes. And
I hate to break it to you, bud, but you're really fucked up on that one.
that for the 49ers, though,
Most of the other ones are fine. That one,
that
we
red
really missed
on
the
gold
assignment.
is. Ugh. And I didn't
Did
want
you
to.
try gold on red? Would that have
I
been
didn't
better?
want to swap it because I was going to do that for the Buccaneers, but then I
Oh
left
shoot,
the
you're right.
Bucks gold, black on gold. Anyway,
But yes, so to kick off the season, as we have the last couple years, we decided that the official sort of like calendar start to our year is going to be the NFL draft, which at time of recording is a grand total of a day and a half away.
not even. It is a day in like 2 hours.
Shoot, you're right. Oh yeah, the coverage starts earlier now because since they moved up to they just put the first round. Someday they are going to try and talk us into because right now what is it? 4 days or is it 3 days or four? I think it's like 3 days now.
I think it's like two. I know it's like 2 days televised, one day like not majorly televised, and then maybe a fourth day of just them making phone calls and updates and stuff.
Right. Because like I have a sinking feeling that they're really going to try and push it to like a whole week. Like Monday through Friday, round 1, round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and like the last couple days are more just like talking about the previous rounds.
They
I
can't
will say,
they can't do that to me. I'm just getting off of WrestleMania weekend. They can't.
right. I'm like, yeah, you're still reeling. Like I said, I still need to sit down and watch it. Maybe we'll do a wrestling bit where we discuss what actually happened. But I saw the end result of the
I'm
weekend, and as I said, I fell to my knees in a Wegmans parking lot. They're
I
very scraped.
I'm considering bringing back, or not bringing back, but starting up. Don't sleep on wrestling because
Right.
WrestleMania. Not gonna lie, it wasn't their best WrestleMania in recent years. Last year's was overall better, but they had some bangers of matches. But the setups from Monday Night Raw this last week, fantastic.
All right. I do want to have a discussion about. Yeah, we are definitely going to have to do an episode because I do want to hear more about that. But maybe I'm just thinking about this because I would argue, like, this draft has been. Because I think we, even more so now, really underappreciated how sexy last year's NFL draft was in terms of, like, discussion topics. Like, I just want to rattle off some of the names we had last year just in the top 10, not even beyond that, where we
All
had
right.
like Brock Bowers and Jared Verse and Brian Thomas Jr. The first three picks: Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. Picks 3 through 6: Marvin Harrison Jr., Joe Alt, Malik Neighbors. Then Michael Penix Jr. as a surprise 8th, Roma Dunze as 9, JJ McCarthy 10. Like the only like boring pick is fittingly enough the Tennessee Titans pick, J.C. Latham, where they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's just take our veggies and get a competent offensive lineman. Like last year's draft was such a perfect combination of like great skill position players, great players at like vital positions, and like team needs being very, very interesting. Whereas like for the amount of draft coverage we've gotten this year, it is just, and like people have talked about this, it is a weirdly thin draft at the top. There are
Yeah.
maybe like, there are maybe 3 or 4 blue chip players, depending on how you count. And the rest, like, there's a lot of discussion about, like, the reason why there haven't really been any trades in the first round is a lot of teams actively would rather just have more lottery tickets and drop out of the first round than take who's ever the best available at pick, like, I don't know, 22 or like
Yeah.
25.
It because I feel like you have all like especially later in the first round, you have a lot of teams. I would say from I guess like the Packers pick on, where it's not really like not like pick 23 to 32, and it's they're none of them are bad. Like obviously they're not bad teams if they're drafting that late, but it's like none of them seem like they got so screwed over that it's just like as long as you aren't stupid with your picks, like, do you really even need one?
Right. Well, because it's interesting. Because, like, and I guess in terms of talking about, like, the value of a pick, it's like the adage that I really like that I heard this year is, like, if you want to be a good, consistently good team, you have to nail rounds 3 through, like, 5, or
Yes.
arguably, like, 2 through 5. Like, if you miss on too many draft, like, what happened to the Patriots? Well, their middle round draft picks started to suck, so the core of the team fell apart. Like,
Yeah.
why are the Bills consistently good? Why are the Ravens consistently good? Because it's like, well, they're not getting all pros in rounds 3, 4, and 5, but they're
Yeah.
getting starters. They're getting guys where you're like, you are going to play 17 games of above average football and keep the ship steady. Whereas, like, if you miss on the difference between the teams who are going to get to go to Super Bowls is like, well, you have to nail the first round picks. I would argue the reason why the Bills have been stuck in this, like, purgatory, whereas the Lions have springboarded over so many teams to become Super Bowl contenders, is because the Lions have gotten Aiden Hutchinson
Yeah.
and have gotten Jahmyr Gibbs, whereas the Bills have gotten a bunch of, like, just okay guys with their late first round picks.
Or trading it away like last year.
Or trading. If they do that again, we are doing a D&D thing the night of the draft. The words you'll hear out of my mouth, like, I will have to form a public apology for a private Discord call. Like, I'll be like, while no one else heard what was said there, it is important for me to have integrity and character. I would like to apologize to the people of to the people of the Balkan region. I did not mean those words. It'll get ugly. But, like, yeah, the problem with this draft is it's like, okay, even, like, beyond, like even beyond, like, pick 16, it's like, all right, there's a pretty good chance you're still not going to draft someone who will springboard you into a Super Bowl. Like,
Yeah.
the guys, there are a lot of guys where it's like, if you really want them, just take them in the first round. Otherwise, everyone else has them graded, like, second or third round. It's weird. Like, I almost want to be annoyed.
You want to go for the don't sleep on picks.
Yes.
I snapped in finger gun. I don't know how well that came across.
If there was no, I heard it. If there was ever a don't sleep on draft, it's this one where there's a lot of guys who are, like, kind of good, or, like, guys where it's like, hey, if this guy lands on the right team, they will turn out okay.
Yeah.
For
example, Puka Nacua was, like, I think a third round pick.
And he was a guy who, like, was on a lot of lists where it's like, hey, this guy was, had some solid college years. Khalil Shakir for the Bills, where it's like, hey, he wasn't, like, he's not going to go in the first round, but, like, a lot of people have very high grades on him, and a lot of people are going to be elbowing and trying to, like, nudge themselves forward to get him in the later rounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like they got that, like, if they make it to this round, we're going to try and draft them as soon as possible.
Right. So how we kind of structure our system here, for people who haven't seen previous draft discussion, is we tend to focus a little less on players and more on team needs. We go through every team drafting in the first round, 1 through 32. I believe this year everyone has a first round pick.
Yes, this is the first year in a while that everyone has a first round pick as of 24 hours beforehand.
Yeah, and again, there's a couple rumors rising that the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants are at least hearing people out for trades to get one of those 2 or 3 premium guys. But it is convenient for us to be able to literally go through each team, talk about the thing they need the most, the thing they need the least, and then maybe we'll bring up, like, 1 or 2 guys who might make sense in that position. And that's our opportunity to talk about individual players. But for the purpose of this discussion, we'll largely keep it broad, more ideological as opposed to individual player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, shall we dive in?
We shall.
All right.
Start with the number 1 pick overall.
Yes. So, with the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, we have the Tennessee Titans. Truly one of the more odd first overall pick teams in recent memory. For that brief moment, it's like, the New York Giants, yes. Or, the New England Patriots, and they both won games at the 11th hour. So it's like, first overall pick goes to
Tennessee.
The Titans. Okay. And that's kind of like I'll let you go first in terms of what you feel like their team needs are, but that kind of nothing energy is kind of what I was going to get at with my points.
Yeah. I feel like since we both agree with the what they don't need, we should start with that. They don't need anyone in their trenches.
Right. Um, for a team that's only won 3 games and has the number 1 overall pick, they weirdly have like the homework parts of team building done. They have done a really good job drafting interior. They have 2 interior linemen who are very, very nasty and will pose problems. It's very funny. Like a lot of free agency and the draft is like mimic what the team that won the Super Bowl is. And
Yeah.
weirdly, Tennessee at least has the part of like interior offensive line, interior defensive line down. Like
Yeah.
those sort of boring, like, we got to, who's the best? You're in the 3rd round. Who's the best defensive tackle who's available? I guess we'll just take them. Those parts are done, which leaves them in a much more
Weird.
simultaneously kind of, a weird spot because it's like, what do you do when you got like, you've already eaten your veggies. What do you actually want your like entree to be then?
Yeah. Like they got that like core. I guess what do I want to call it? Like the less sexy position. Like for especially for like early picks out of the way. So like with their trenches, so I just said they need to use that number 1 pick right. Now I'm not saying they need to draft somebody for it because I feel like you can.
Right.
They have this weird level team where they are both competent but very incompetent.
Right.
Or incompetent.
It's really hard
The
unless Peyton
says.
Manning like neck has a degenerative issue. It's hard to be a competent team and be 3 and 4.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's hard to talk about them because it's like, they're stable, but they don't feel good.
So like obviously a easy pick would be a quarterback because their quarterback room consists of Will Levis, Brandon Allen, and Tim Boyle as of right now.
Tim Boyle.
Not amazing.
Ugh.
But they also have Tony Pollard, like for like offensive weapons. They have Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears at running back. They have Chig Okonkwo.
Yes, you
at
got it.
tight
You
end,
actually nailed it.
which is surprising. Like
Right.
they don't really have a great tight end depth, but he's still a very good tight end one. And then
Some teams would kill for a pass catcher. They at least have one.
yeah. And then Calvin Ridley, Treylon Burks, and Van Jefferson, or I guess newly acquired Van Jefferson, for them is their alleged starting receiver core.
Not the best receiving core, but 3 guys with very different physical attributes and traits where
Yeah.
you're like, we can at least cobble together an offense with this.
Yeah.
These are all guys who have done, other than Burks, these are 2 guys who have done stuff before.
Yeah, I mean, Burks has been all over the place a little bit. But yeah, Van Jefferson and Ridley have
Produced.
done. Yeah, they've produced for other teams. So
Right.
is it like a quarterback fill? But when did they draft Will Levis? Last year, or the year before? Year before, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yes. I have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, losing him after 2 seasons, or do you want to double down on him and give him some more? Like they've also improved their offensive line a little bit too. It's like, do you want to stick there? Have like get somebody to block for him more? Offensive weapon, like
Right. Right. Other than defensive tackle and interior offensive line, it's like kind of B minus C pluses across the board. So you can kind of talk yourself into a lot of different positions. It is just comes down to like, hey, you don't get the first overall pick. Mercifully, you don't get the first overall pick every year. So like, you should probably get a premium position. You really should prioritize premium positions.
But
So-
honestly, if they want to trade it away for the right price, I wouldn't be
Right.
upset about that.
I'm actually surprised there hasn't been more discussion about them trading the pick, because this is a classic, like, I'm trying to remember who had the number one. Wait a minute. Were they the team that had the number one overall pick when the Rams traded up for Jared Goff? And then I'm trying to remember what the order was, where
I
it
don't
was like
remember
two
that far
teams.
back.
Remember, it was the Carson Wentz draft also. And it's funny because both the first and second pick were trades with other teams. So the Rams and Eagles traded up. And I'm like genuinely surprised because, like, literally, I look at all three of the first teams drafting first: the Titans, the Browns, the Giants, and I'm like, while they need premium talent, I could also argue, like, I guess my argument, especially for drafting quarterback, is like, if you put a decent quarterback here, are we a playoff? Not a contender, but at least a team that can make the playoffs. And for all three of them, I say no. So I'm like, well, why not just trade the pick then? Why not just take advantage of more desperate teams? For people who aren't familiar, the current favorite to be the pick is quarterback Cam Ward of formerly of Miami. I don't know how to feel about this because, like,
I don't think
I'm
I
curious
like
to
it.
see what you think.
Here's why.
It's yes.
Like, it's a drastic change from college football to NFL. We can all agree on that. You go from being quarterback number one of, I don't know, a couple 100,000 schools, whatever, to being on allegedly one of the top 32 if you get the starting gig. But the problem I have with this is if you don't have that starting gig locked in, which I don't know with Will Levis, if you will, like, you would be his backup, but he's a 2-year veteran. That's not really much. Like, Atlanta picking up Michael Penix Jr. last year, absurd surprise. No one can deny that. But you have that. You still have Kirk, where he could sit behind or sit in front of, depending on what part of the season. And you have someone who's had success at the role for years. Because he's been a starting quarterback for the vast majority of his career.
Right.
So you have that, like, at least someone more veteran to help you out and help teach you and be the iron to sharpen your iron.
Right.
I don't know if you would get that with the Tennessee quarterback room.
Right.
And
You know, you're actually walking me into one of the points I wanted to make, but keep going.
yeah, that's kind of like the thing where it's just like, if you don't want that quarterback, people trade up for a quarterback, and you could probably make a solid deal because you don't really have, like, it would almost be like a full start over with a brand new quarterback because
Right.
there's no mentorship situation. You're hanging out with Mr. Mayo and Aaron Rodgers replacement number 6 for the Jets, like, last year or whatever, and whoever
Right.
Brandon Allen is.
A guy who's been in the NFL for a shockingly long time. Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like people are a little down on Cam Ward as a player. Like, because this draft quarterback class isn't the sexy 1, 2, 3 of last year, where we had 6 guys go in the top 10, I feel like people are being unnecessarily harsh because Cam Ward does have likable traits. He's got a very strong arm. He's very, he stays in the pocket but has enough athleticism to, like, buy himself a few extra beats. He has the kind of arm arrogance you kind of want a player like him to have, where it's like, I'd rather a guy throw an interception 40 yards downfield than take the check down on 3rd and 18. Like, I'd rather at least him go for it. And by all accounts, he's apparently a very charming, charismatic guy. Like, one of the biggest takeaways from this draft process is, like, he's absolutely crushed every single interview. And that's a part of why Tennessee talked themselves into this. And yeah, we're talking about a franchise that's been in a lot of flux for a while, where they've been in this weird pattern of every other year. It started the year they traded A.J. Brown, and the whole thing kind of fell apart, where it's like, The coach gets the GM fired. The GM gets the coach fired. The new coach somehow manages to get the GM fired. And you're just in this never-ending cycle of like, who's exactly in charge here? What is the vision of this team? What do we want to do? And talking about like leadership, I just keep it keeps getting stuck in my craw of like one of the biggest problems quarterbacks run into when they enter the NFL is like coaches don't really want to coach, especially quarterbacks anymore. Like there is an expectation of if they don't come in fully formed or come in at least good enough to carry a team, it's like they'll dump them to the curve to try and save their job. I just keep thinking about last year, how much of a dick Coach Callahan was to Will Levis. And like objectively, Will Levis played bad. He was not a very good quarterback last year. There was a meme every other week of him doing something ridiculous and looking like he literally looked like that Mr. Krabs meme where he's sitting at the table and looking around and everything gets blurry.
Yeah.
Every other week he would have one of those like, but at the same time, it's like, Callahan, you are explicitly brought in because you're like a quarterback whisperer, because you've made quarterbacks successful. Why are you just screaming at this 22-year? Like, this is not helping the situation at all. Like, I don't think you have the temperament for this job. And I really am just like, are you going to put Cam Ward, who is good but still needs a little work, he still needs to polish a few things, are you going to put him in that environment where it really does feel like there's a high chance that it's either going to be a toxic relationship off the bat or you're going to fire your coach? But at the same time, I get it because the thing I said for their biggest need was they really need a franchise face. Because like we're joking about the Tennessee Titans being a weird get for the first overall pick, and it's like imagine say Tennessee Titans. Close your eyes and say Tennessee Titans. Who do you even imagine?
Is it weird that I still imagine Derrick Henry?
That's the problem! All you can think about is players who aren't on the team anymore. I still imagine A.J. Brown in a Titans uniform, even though he's been on the Eagles for like 3 years. Like, and that's like the fundamental problem, where it's like they haven't had a franchise face. You know, once they decided they were ready to move on from Derrick Henry, and even like the last 2 or 3 years of Derrick Henry, where he was just being a good sport and playing through his contract, like, they haven't had an identity. They haven't had a personality. And I can see you talking yourself into Cam Ward because it's like, yeah, new quarterback, immediate face of your franchise, and on top of that, a guy who, by all accounts, is like genuinely nice and hardworking, and like all of his teammates go out of their way to talk about how much of like a superstar he is. On top of the fact he's a guy with like grit and determination. You know, he wasn't highly recruited out of high school. He went to like a junior college first and like worked his way up through the NIL process. So like if that's your argument for taking it, I guess I get that. But in a draft where you have arguably 3 guys who are kind of like big blue chip talents beyond him, Travis Hunter, the quarterback wide receiver combo, Abdul Carter, the defensive end from Penn State, and Ashton Genty, the much talked about running back from Boise State. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you don't just talk yourself into one of them and be like, we'll figure out quarterback when it's time to figure out quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, I do love, a weird amount of Tennessee fans on like Reddit and stuff have talked about like, why don't we just take Ashton Genty? Why don't we just play the hits again? Get another running back. Like, just, you know, play the, you know, again, try to make it 2015 again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it does feel like that pick is kind of locked in, but I don't know, like, and maybe that's like, again, quarterback is worth a lot more than cornerback and a lot more than running back and a little more than defensive end, but I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I can agree to that.
Who would you pick if you had the first pick?
Like, as the Tennessee Titans, I genuinely don't know. Like, it's
because I get it.
I might look for a Treylon Burks like switch, but like it's also the argument of like how bad Will Levis is versus the offensive line he previously had, and like their defense getting open, but also it's just a matter of like what route do they want to go down? Because I feel like you're kind of right with the whole lack of identity thing. They don't really have like a guy, and with that weirdness and stuff of not having a guy, it's like you have your first round pick, I don't know when your next pick is. I'm assuming early second round.
I don't think they traded that first. Like, I believe they get the first pick of the second round. I don't think they
Yeah.
traded that.
Do you like how like being kind of generous without including don't sleep on players and stuff? You get your pick, at least your two of your top 33 picks overall. Can you go from a bottom, literally the bottom place team by default, which is how they got it? They didn't really get it because they earned it. They got it because other people screwed up more.
Right. Yeah. That's. I
Or
think that's why it
unscrewed
even
up.
feels weirder, because it's like you weren't even bad enough to justify getting the first overall pick. You just won a series of convoluted tiebreakers.
Yeah. Where it's just like, I mean, I think I'm talking myself into they should be trading it to get more picks.
Right.
Get a
All right.
later.
And correction. They do not have the 33rd pick. They have the 35th pick for reasons that are not made clear.
Okay.
There's no like little note that they traded the pick, so I have no idea how that works.
That's still incredibly early second round.
Yes,
so
that's
it's
still a top 3 pick in the second round. Yes.
not really the end of the world. But like,
I mean, if you really want a quarterback, why not just talk yourself into one of like,
honestly,
because like, well, there's only like one quarterback people are considering for the top of the draft. It's like, all right, well, there's a handful of quarterbacks that are at least like tempting in the second or third round. Like I'm actually very partial to Jalen Milroe, the quarterback from Alabama, where I'm like, but again, he's developmental. He needs work. His mechanics are terrible. And I'm like, well, you just called, you literally yelled at Will Levis, what the fuck are you doing? You're not going to have patience for this.
all right, hear me out. Here's
Okay.
my hear me out cake. There's one team, in my opinion, that is in desperate need of a quarterback, and that is the
Yes.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
They can't afford, like, it's so sad that they have to draft a quarterback because they're just in
gonna
too
have-
deep.
Yeah, we'll talk about more when we get to them. Pittsburgh, you offer Pittsburgh a trade for like their round one this year, their round one next year, and like a round two the following year for like something like
Right.
that, where instead of or like a 1 and 2 this year, where instead of getting like the top guy you want this season, you get a couple more layers of enhancement talent, and you save that like early pick because one or two players is not good enough to change their level. But you can start to build some sort of long-term plan out of that. Where Will Levis's contract's running up, you get somebody on the older side as a QB2, and you get like use those picks to pick up a running back next year or some other sexier positions, and then get something better. Because Pittsburgh's the only one that I think is desperately in need of a quarterback.
We'll talk about the Saints, but their circumstance is more confusing because
Saints
no one
is
knows what's
different,
going
yeah.
on. Well, you know what it is? See, here's the thing. You're actually talking, like, logically. You're thinking practically about this situation. And, like, you're actually parsing out, like, going pure brain version of this, of, like, look, the numbers say we won't be a competitive playoff team for at least 2 or 3 more years. Let's keep this, build as much of a core as we can, start paying them, la-di-da-di-da. But the heart part of this is your owner being like, I am not going through another year of a stopgap court. You're picking a quarterback. We are picking someone with this. I need someone to put, even if it's not quarterback, I need someone to put on the season tickets. I need someone whose jersey will be in the top 15 jersey sales. I need to be able to sell this franchise to these disgruntled fans to get them to buy in again. Like, I am not watching whatever that was last year. And, that's how you talk yourself into just using the pick, even though it's like, okay, even if you do pick Ashton Genty, are you going to be good enough, quick enough for it to matter? Cool, Travis Hunter could be one of the best players to ever play football, but it's like, if you go 6 and 10 every year, who cares?
Yeah, and it's also like it's the exact it of like, do you want to waste your first pick picking the best player and then just throwing him on a team that just kind of doesn't want to win? And sometimes it, like, I would say sometimes it like works out because if you look at it, two like clear cases of bottom tier teams drafting an early quarterback and then turning things around: Houston Texans, Washington Commanders, very clearly.
Right.
But they also were very open to just completely restructuring, and they had other enhancement talent by the time of the draft or very shortly after. And
Right. They built a system where they could, they reimagined the franchise in a way that it made sense, where it's like, we have enough talent now that if we just put the quarterback in, it'll at least be stable. Obviously, they didn't expect it to be that good that fast,
yeah,
but like,
but you have something stable. You have, I would say, maybe not top 32, but top 40 running backs and receivers on both teams. And yeah, I feel like that's the difference.
right. Yeah, I think so much of our criticism, like, I think the thing we're just talking around in circles right now is just like, it's less that we have a lack of faith in any individual player. I certainly think Cam Ward could be a top 15 quarterback. Heck,
Oh,
I think
easily.
Shador Sanders, who's kind of falling in the draft, could be that. I believe Ashton Genty will be a top 5 running back within the next, like, 5 years. I believe Abdul Carter, assuming his foot isn't a problem, will be a top tier defensive end. And I assume I genuinely believe Travis Hunter can pull it off and play both positions in the NFL. But unfortunately, like, I don't have any faith in like this kind of weird listless Tennessee Titans franchise to maximize any of that. And like, yeah, I really do think they're going to be stuck in a loop until they fire both the coordinator or the GM and the coach at the same time, and then hire both. Like, they really just need a new package deal. And so many teams would benefit from, like, if you're going to fire one, fire both. Hire 2 new guys and be like, you two are anchored together. This is a vision, and if it doesn't work in 5 years, we'll try something new. Shall we move on to Cleveland?
We shall.
Probably the saddest team in the NFL, which is saying a lot. Like, that's the thing. The Titans are just kind of neutral. The Browns are actively sad. They were 3-14 last year. They attempted one last time to make the Deshaun Watson saga work, only to have him tear his Achilles tendon and then tear it again during his rehabilitation process. Maybe the other one. They haven't made it clear. The brief high of Jameis Winston just being a funny guy and throwing the ball into harm's way every single time helped the mood a little bit, but yeah, that's over. He's gone. Again, it was another. The players like him too much, and it is insane that the Browns have had 2 objectively more fun, more likable, and better quarterbacks than Deshaun Watson, who they had to get rid of because they didn't want like the team to revolt against Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. Well, first off, I think it's more clear than ever that the Deshaun Watson trade was probably the worst trade in the NFL.
I don't think it could get worse. Again, I don't. It's really hard. This fundamentally changes how people are going to do trades and contracts
such
and
a bust.
everything.
But allegedly, according to the sheet that I'm looking at, Deshaun Watson is projected to be QB3.
Well, I'm like, he's not even going to play. He's not going to be ready to play next year.
Yeah. Once again, it might be because he's not ready to play or anything. It might be anything like that, but he's allegedly considered that. And you have Joe Flacco and Super Bowl winning Kenny Pickett.
That fuck. God bless failing upwards white quarterbacks. God bless the backbone of this great nation. Absolute diarrhea quarterbacks who somehow managed to become backups on Super Bowl winning teams.
Yep.
On Jalen Hurts' back, he gets to look at a ring every day of his life and say, yeah, I contributed some level to this.
Yeah, but
I clapped and slapped people's butts as they came off the field.
I played in the Super Bowl on the winning team.
Okay, that's kind of cool, though. I know it's because you beat the absolute stuffing out of another team, but it
Yeah,
is kind of cool to say, I took snaps in the Super Bowl. Obviously, the context is kind of lame, but, like,
yeah.
that's still cool, right?
But here,
I had that one play where the ball got stuck to my hand, and I did like literally like a stage combat class. Like, here's how you get flipped over. Whoop.
yeah, that was something. That was
I mean, right?
that
If you
was
can't be good, at least be cool.
yeah. So with that, yeah, um, I don't know which one I want to. I'd rather start with. I guess at least they don't need to waste money.
Right. Like, that's actually a really underrated part of this. Like, for people who aren't really familiar, the idea with the draft is one of the reasons why people still hold on to their first round picks or like try to collect a lot of draft picks is because of the rookie salary cap scale. Basically, after a bunch of high profile incidents where high profile rookies held out for months into the season to demand higher contracts, and those players kind of turned out to be busts, namely Jamarcus Russell, who's a whole story into himself. The NFL was like, okay, we can't have this. Is embarrassing. It's ridiculous to have this much of your salary cap toward players who have literally never taken a snap before. Rookie salary cap. Every single pick has a set amount it can make, and there's a little flexibility on like incentives and like guarantees and signing bonuses. But for the most part, it is what it is. You sign it and you show up at camp. No ifs and or buts, or you like get fined and you're in trouble. And one of the reasons why teams like the Browns need a lot of draft capital, one of the reasons why I thought they might trade this pick to get more draft picks is because they have so much money tied into Deshaun Watson. They literally don't have enough money to spend on other players. Yeah, an ungodly amount. Literally the most money anyone had gotten to ever play football at the moment of signing it, which was insane when he was just a solid quarterback accused by like 20 plus women of sexual misconduct. And it's even more insane in hindsight, where he quite literally did not have a single good game for the team and got injured multiple times and destroyed the culture of the locker room.
Yeah.
So they just need players who are cheap. Like, whether or not they turn out to be all pro, it's irrelevant if they turn out to be pro bowlers. It's irrelevant if they turn out to be all pros. They just need these guys to be able to get on the field and play so you have some kind of a semblance of a functioning team.
Yeah, and here's 'cause they don't even have that. Here, they managed to keep Myles Garrett, but I feel like there was a lot more scariness involved, and he's getting a lot of money than with
Right.
that. But here is their like offense. They have David Njoku, great tight end. Can't deny that. Allegedly, right now, starting running back, Jerome Ford. Not
Okay.
not the best, but he's definitely could be considered a one. Some teams, I would say, is considered a two on most. And then their wide receiver core is like their 1, 2, and 3. Cedric Tillman, Michael Woods 2, and Jerry Jeudy.
An okay collection of talent.
Yeah, I would argue that that is a string of 3 wide receiver twos.
Yes.
Which,
God, that's the worst thing. And like, glass houses, Buffalo Bills, whatever. There's nothing more annoying than being like, we have the best collection of role players at wide receiver you could possibly have. And it's like, all right, it's fourth quarter, game on the line, who's making a catch? Well,
like, yeah, I don't see any of these as of right now. I don't see any of them being like a bail me out guy.
right. Which is why, like, it's so interesting because, like, yeah, what you're talking about is, like, yours is don't waste money. And my least needed is in denial. The team that Baker Mayfield led to the playoffs during the COVID season and who upset the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs when it looked like the future of the Browns was finally bright, that, like, it's so funny all of this is in the context of the Browns are one of the few teams to ever, like, truly tank in the NFL. More or less kind of openly admit to it, where it's like, they burnt through coaches. They won 2 games over the span of like 2 years. They had one of the only winless seasons in NFL history. All to get this capital. It actually kind of works. You get like Myles Garrett, you get Baker Mayfield, you have a decent collection of skill players, you have Nick Chubb at the prime of his career. like a strong defense, it was going to work, but then Baker gets hurt and you get cold feet and you kind of tear the thing apart. When I say the thing they need the least is denial, it's like bringing in Deshaun Watson was convincing yourself that this team still could compete for a Super Bowl and you just needed slightly better quarterback play. But that team is gone. Like, Nick Chubb had one of the worst knee injuries we've ever seen, and who knows if he'll ever be able to play at his all-pro level again.
Yeah.
The wide receiving core has been drained and is now down to role players. The offensive line that you spent years building is starting to get older, and pieces are starting to leave. The defense is still good, but it's not nearly as good as it was. Like, you are not one player away from fixing this. And on one hand, like, you could argue that's a reason to trade this pick, get as many picks as you can, and just ride out the storm for like 1 or 2 more years until you completely get out of that Deshaun Watson money. But like, it also it's kind of what we were talking about with the Titans of like, you also could just draft one really, really good player who will present a culture change opportunity.
Yeah, I think they should do the inverse of what I said for the Titans, where the Titans need to turn one pick into a bunch of picks. I think Cleveland needs to keep that pick and just start, like, pick somebody very middle level and just start over.
Right. Like, they are another team who I think could really benefit from drafting one of like these sort of like, They are a team, and maybe it's because he played at Ohio State. Will Howard for quarterback. That's like a perfect, like, this is a guy who will just be here and not completely poop himself when we need him to make plays. If nothing else, he knows how to run an offense. Whereas, like, yeah, they are a team where you look at any of the blue chippers. Like, it sounds like they're leaning toward Travis Hunter, the Colorado wide receiver quarterback hybrid who just won the Heisman, who was adamant that he will be playing both positions in the NFL. And as much as it angers me that the Browns could get him, yeah, here's the thing. It is absurd, but I'm like, if one guy's going to do it, would it not be the guy who won the damn Heisman for doing it?
True.
Like, if it's not going to work now, it's just never going to work. Because, like,
he has
because the thing
option.
is, right, he has the best shot. Because here's the thing, a lot of great high school players played both sides of the ball, and they never do it in college because the level is just so higher end that they'd never do it. And yet he was able to. At high-level competition, and you could make an argument that he's top 5 at both positions. Like, if he was just like, I'm going to only be a wide receiver, he'd be in the top 5 picks. If he just wanted to be a cornerback, he would be in the top 5 picks. Like, if it's not going to work now, then it's just never going to work. Mm-hmm. But, like, I could see them easily talking themselves into either him or Abdul Carter as just like here is a blue-chip, high-character, like, likable guy. That's the thing. It's also, like, you're also laundering your sort of, like, people do not like the Browns right now. People actively root for the Browns to suck.
Yeah.
Like, you need to bring in a likable guy to get people to believe in your franchise again and be like, that Deshaun Watson thing was just a little whoopsie-doodle, but here are the scrappy Browns you know and love.
I think they had that with Myles Garrett, but the fact that he wanted to leave and is staying for quite the penny.
Right.
I respect him for making that bad, because dude's very much good enough that he can easily get that on any team.
Right.
But
it's frustrating.
I think that's why I put they need to just be completely restarted. Because like they do need a culture change, but their like last star of the old guard, for lack of a better term, is Myles Garrett. And he wanted out. So that does not bode well going in.
I mean, if we're being real, they should have, instead of trading the pick and keeping Myles Garrett, they should have traded Myles Garrett and kept the pick. But again, you have to sell your franchise with a player, and like, it would be really
that price point
again. Exactly. Even if it's at that price point, even if all logic says this is a bad idea, it's a bad idea for Myles, it's a bad idea for you, but it's like, at the end of the day, if you can't make it work with arguably the best player your franchise has ever drafted, you're just kind of fucked. Mm-hmm. Again, it's so, the Browns are just so infuriating. One of the stories I always bring up with the NFL is Joe Thomas, the offensive tackle. That was an all-time draft. I believe it was 2007. That was a Jamarcus Russell draft. But it's Jamarcus Russell, a bust so bad it fundamentally changed the meta of the NFL. Like, it changed the finances of the NFL forever. But then you have Adrian Peterson, Patrick Willis, Calvin fucking Johnson, and Joe Thomas. Arguably four guys who you could argue are top 5 at their position, who never did jack shit in terms of like playoff success and stuff, and all kind of had to retire. Well, Adrian Peterson dragged it out, but all kind of retired early. And I always just think about Joe Thomas talking about like, yeah, I got to the point there near the end of my career where I'd just get into the car with my wife and burst into tears, and we just wouldn't say anything because I'd be too sad to talk. And I'm like, again, relegation. We need to, at some point, franchises need to be like punished for doing this to human beings. And that's independent of like physical toll. The New York Football Giants, last year's punching bag, didn't prove the haters said they were going to suck this year after trading Saquon Barkley, and the haters were right. Good call by the haters.
Yeah.
They were 3-14. They had the basically betting favorites to get the first overall pick. But Drew Lock, sort of journeyman quarterback at this point, had one of the greatest games a quarterback has ever had to get them just enough wins to get the third pick.
I feel like there's some years where the first pick and the third pick are drastically different situations.
Mm-hmm.
I do not feel that way this year.
Right. It is funny for all the hand-wringing. Like, the Patriots are the ones who really fuck themselves because it's like a 1 quarterback, 3 great player draft, and you're the 4th pick. Yeah. They're the ones who actively got fucked because Joe Milton turned into Dante Culpepper in the final game of the season.
I would disagree.
I think they're fine here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, Patriots are fine this year. Last year, if it was like last year where they would have had the 4 pick, I think they would have been screwed.
Right. Well, that's what happened to the Giants last year, where they needed one of those quarterbacks. They needed Drake May. They needed Jaden Daniels. But of course, Tommy fucking DeVito, who should have been, the Jeremy Lin of the NFL. Except unlike Jeremy Lin, he stayed his welcome too long. Like, if anything, Jeremy Lin should have had more time to play, whereas Tommy DeVito played too many games and won too many games. This year, it's fine, more or less.
I love their quarterback room. I feel like they just went, you know what, let's go for only meme quarterbacks. It's Broncos country, let's ride Russell Wilson.
What did he say? He has a new slogan.
Does he?
Fuck, what is it? Yes, and it's actually kind of nice. I actually kind of like it. Wilson.
But they also have Jameis Winston, who is iconic. Great performance at the Super Bowl as press. It's funny that he took Saquon's words to heart because he asked everybody who he interviewed. He would go, "I'm technically jobless. Who should I ask about for a job?" And Saquon did tell him the New York Giants. And Tommy Cutlets. I feel like I feel like they're going the fun team route with that quarterback.
Which I respect, frankly, because here's the thing about the Giants. They're historically bad at scoring touchdowns over the last couple years. Mm-hmm. I always think about the one play. It was like two coaching regimes ago, where they had they were on like the 1 yard line, their 1 yard line. So if they get tackled, it's the safety. And they had so little faith on 3rd and 8 that they could get the first down and not get a safety. They just ran a quarterback sneak to give the punter a little more room to work.
Yeah.
Like, if nothing else, just getting like baseline memery quarterback play. Because it's like Russell Wilson was fine, not good last year. He had some ups, he had some downs. He more or less gave you the Russell Wilson experience. Mm-hmm. Jameis Winston, similar. He gave you exactly what you get from Jameis Winston. He is fully prepared at any given game to throw 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions returned for touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's not, at some point we just have to accept it's not going to change. And nothing else, Tommy Cutlets, capable of surprises. At least he's charming. If nothing else, you've at least given yourself a framework where it's like, it won't be sad. At least we'll put up a fight. At least Russell Wilson can throw 1 or 2 moonballs a game to Malik Neighbors, and it will get the crowd fired up. At least Jameis Winston will throw the ball to Malik Neighbors 30 times in a game, and maybe that poor man will break apart. But, like, you're at least going to get the crowd invested again, which, after such a slog of a season, where you had your dirty laundry aired on HBO, for people who don't know, they were the off-season sort of documentary. The documentary team from HBO followed their off-season around as they basically were like, Do
We
we
don't
trade
need
the only
Saquon.
good player we have? Yeah, we don't know what we're doing. Do we trade the only good player we have on offense because analytics say we should? And they did, and it ended exactly as bad as you would have thought. Um, which is why, for most needed position, I put elite playmaking. I think at the end of the day, like, for a team as bad as the Giants, they have stuff. They've invested enough in the offensive line that it's kind of like, it's not good, but it's baseline competent that a good quarterback can bail you out of it. You have one truly great wide receiver in Malik Neighbors. Your running back play, weirdly, the running back, I always forget his name, but the running back they actually got to replace Saquon Barkley actually had a decent season.
Tyrone Tracy or Devin
yes.
Singletary?
No, not Devin Singletary. He's whatever. He's a guy who really needs a good
Tracy.
offensive line to be good.
Yes.
Yeah. Tracy, like, was solid.
bad.
On limited carries, he averaged like 4.4 yards a carry. More or less the baseline you need if you're going to go running back by committee. And on defense, it's like they kind of become disillusioned with Kayvon Thibodeau, but he's good. Brian Burns is one of the best defensive linemen in the league. Like, you have stuff. Like, at the end of the day, you just need, more than anything, you kind of also need a franchise face, an explosive playmaker who will, like, change the geography of a game for you. And fortunately, in a draft that has basically the two guys you would look at there are Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, you're almost certainly guaranteed to get one of them at this point, barring an unprecedented trade for the first pick. That, like, I feel like if that was going to happen, it would have happened already.
Yeah, and also I feel like a trade for pick number 1 is almost always a quarterback pick.
Right. It'll be the Saints or the Steelers. Yeah, it'll be someone desperate enough to be like, we want a Cam Ward.
Yeah. So
I know you want a Cam Ward, but can we have the Cam Ward?
Yeah, I feel like they're very safe with picking up Carter or Jeffrey.
Although they're another team where I'm like, are you sure you don't want to just do the Saquon Barkley thing? All right, I will say though, Saquon Barkley and Ashton Genty are two very different prospects.
Yes. Agreed.
Like, yeah, Saquon there's like two lineages of elite running back prospects. There is the Saquon Barkley, Adrian Peterson, kind of Reggie Bush, though his career never quite reached what we were hoping for, of like explosive first step. Literally, the minute they get the ball, they are moving so fast and are accelerating so quickly. If you don't grab them before they get past yard 3, it's kind of over. Whereas Genty doesn't really have that. He's in the more Bijan Robinson, LaDainian Tomlinson space of like stout, insanely balanced, very strong lower bodies. Like, they just ricochet off people.
Yeah.
And like if you do not get 3 people on them within the first 3 yards, then you're in trouble. Yeah. But yeah, different kind of running back, but same, like, what if we try the running back thing again and just don't screw up the quarterback position?
Yeah, I think they can. I think their smartest move, and this is my, like, what they need to look out for, is they needed to do either a wide receiver or like a running back, somebody to replace Saquon, or somebody to honestly, like, just amp up and be better than Darius Slayton or Wan'Dale Robinson. And then what they need to do is, or I guess not, and then, or they need a stronger offensive line, because their defense is stable. I think stable is the word is the best word to use. It's obviously not the best defense, but I would say far from the worst.
Mm-hmm. They have a good pass rush, which, if you can't have a great defense, have a good pass rush, and that'll at least sort a lot of things out.
Putting enough pressure on the situations gets things going.
Right. Yeah, and what you're describing well is like listing off their various needs. While every team obviously usually has one big glaring need, it really just comes down to how you want to allocate the picks you have toward that. Because it's like, yes, the Giants could use a young quarterback, but do you really want to reach up for Shedeur Sanders, or would you rather solve your wide receiver problem with Travis Hunter and then loop back around in like the 2nd or 3rd round for a quarterback, and then loop around in the 3rd round for the offensive lineman you need? It's like, so the draft is like, again, it's resource allocation. Every
Yes.
player has a certain sort of numeric value in your system, and you just got to ask yourself, do we want to like do we want, where are we going to get the most value for this pick? Is it going to be at quarterback? Is it going to be at receiver? Is it going to be at edge rusher? Like,
Hmm.
if, if, for example, if you're drafting, like, for example, the Bears, who need an offensive lineman,
Correct.
it's like, if three offensive linemen have already been picked, would you rather just get, like, the first defensive lineman and then loop back to offensive lineman later, or vice,
Where figure out what is the better allocation of your assets? Because if you don't
right.
have
Would you rather, yeah.
like
Is the third best offensive lineman more valuable to you than the first best defensive lineman? Is an easy way of thinking about it.
mm-hmm.
And sometimes the answer will be, well, we really need the offensive lineman, so we're not going to screw around. We're just going to get the offensive lineman. And that's fine. That's a way of building a franchise. But other times, it's like, no, I'd rather take the best available player, which happens to be a defensive lineman, and we'll figure it out later with offensive line.
Yeah, we can maybe work a trade. We can figure something out. But I don't.
Right.
I think them going for a quarterback would be a waste
Right.
for the
Because it's
Giants.
like, yeah. There are too many, like, at pick 3, there are too many sort of, like, higher ranked guys at different positions to justify taking the second best quarterback in a draft where the quarterbacks are considered not great,
Yeah, but
just good.
a receiver, a lineman, running back really could put them in a competition-based range. Because Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and Tommy DeVito too, they've never been replace me bad, if that makes sense.
Right.
They're like they've been you're not welcome back here bad, but they've never
Right.
been we need to replace you bad.
They've been flawed. Yeah, they've been flawed in ways that eventually drive their teams crazy enough to give up on the project. But, like, they've been good enough to stay around in most places, I think is a good way of putting it.
They finish up their contracts. They might not get second ones, but they finish up their contracts.
Well said. Yeah, and you said least needed quarterback. And sort of to piggyback off that, get rich quick schemes. Like, if you're really going to draft Shador here, that's because, like, I really do think it's kind of crazy that the GM coach combination didn't get fired after this season, where it's like everything that could have went wrong. You didn't even get the first overall pick, and also you had to watch as your ex, who you were like loudly kicking to the curb, was basically had the best season any running back has ever had. And yeah, the problem is now they are absolutely coaching for their jobs and they need to win right away. So you could see them talking themselves into drafting Shador and being like, we can put him in right away and, like, buy ourselves more time. Any
think-
move in general they make that's like, we have to win right now. When in reality, this is like at least a 1 or 2 more year rebuild, I think would be hasty and short-sighted.
Yeah, I think they could be considered good enough or decent if you if they are smart with their picks and just pick some sort of either enhancement talent for the quarterbacks to throw or hand the ball off to, or enhancement talents on the line. You're right with your get rich quick picks of that's kind of it's a little bit of a waste. It's a little bit pointless. It's a little bit stupid. And they like if they picked up Shador for some reason now, they're not, like they're still going to have the glaring offensive line weakness. They're going to still have like they're still going to have problems with their weapons cuz
Right.
like
It's going to be the how many targets can a single wide receiver have in a single season before their body completely
Yeah.
fails them, with Malik Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors is going to turn into their new Saquon if they pick up a quarterback.
Exactly.
All right. Shall we wrap up here for this hour-long housekeeping and first 3 picks and then pick up next time for some more picks?
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right, Carter. End the first episode of the new season.
Well, thank you all for watching. We've gotten through arguably the first three picks are like the standards. They feel like they are largely set in stone with a draft as simple as this. It feels like these are the certainties. Once we get past here, once we get into the questions of what do you do with a slightly imperfect offensive line and wide receiver class? What do you do with the robust collection of defensive linemen of various different sizes? How will the best running back class in years get appraised? Once we get into this stuff, the draft really begins. So tune in for our next episode where we get into the weeds and get real.
And it's going to be only uploaded probably right now. I'm probably going to just batch upload them.
Woo!